This episode is with Shane Liyanage, who is the founder of Data Driven Sports Analytics and has notably worked with Ons Jabeur and helped her get to number 2 in the world, and is currently working with Aryna Sabalenka and is the chief data consultant to actually help them understand their patterns and know how they can use data actually to inform the practice court and the match court. So this was super interesting. I love diving into this stuff for my own journey and thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope you do too. Shane, welcome, mate. Thank you so much for coming on the pod today. Appreciate it.
I appreciate asking me on. Thanks, Luke.
Of course. I mean, I don't want to be just working and having conversations with players. For me as a coach and just trying to understand the broader landscape of tennis, I think it's really important to go down and talk to many different guests. So for you in the analytics field, I'm really curious for my own personal journey, but then also I think it can be super helpful for so many other people that are listening to the conversation. That I think a really good place for us to start is how is analytics changing the game of tennis? Because this is tennis Moneyball moment, I feel, in the last years, where people are starting to tap in and realize how much it can actually help you.
Yeah, I think it's just something that's happened maybe in the last 6-7 years where the access to data has just been significantly better. Whether it's the line calling data is more available or there's more AI tools allowing people to get the data. The access to it's just meant that, whether it's in training, whether it's in matches, a coach can get that information and it can be quickly turned into insights. So the raw data itself, no one's got the time to really dig in, particularly a coach or a player, to spend another 1, 2, 3 hours to review it. But now that the tools are there to get the key bits of insights, and because of that, I think it's allowing players to review their matches quicker. It's allowing them to scout their opponents better. Going into an off season, it's giving them the ability to prioritize things. So I think it's improved a lot, and there's just enough. It's like success. What's the saying? Success leaves footprints. So some of the top players have used it, had success. So now, it's just become something that's becoming part of the DNA of coaching, of review, and in tennis now.
Yeah, 100%. Like, what are some of the key points of information that you're really looking at that you start to extract and go, well, there's some nuggets here, just from a lot of patterns and data that you've been seeing across your time? What do you feel are the key nuggets that are standing out for you?
Yeah, definitely. I think the tours are very, very different. So we work with ATP and WTA, but you can see, you can quickly see the game styles that like to sort of open the court up, or play laterally a little bit more, whereas the WTA they're playing with a little bit more depth. You can see that in the data quite clearly. I think in the data, always one of the more popular things that coaches like to look at, and even myself, is just behavior under pressure. And that's something that you can quickly, like with the serve pattern. Okay, what are they doing on a break point? Yeah, what are they doing after at 4-all, 5-all in the set? Are they behaving a little bit differently? What happens in a tie break? There's some key insights that you look at on the serve, but also with the ground stroke. So they're hitting bigger than normal. Are they playing cross? Or they're looking to change directions more? So I think that the under pressure behaviors are a real nugget, because it for me, it shows the true identity of a player.
100%. That's so interesting. So for you, can you plug in those moments and go, well, every break point or every pressure point there where there was a more important moment, can you kind of plug that into the software or the data system that you're running and actually extract all of the points there and know kind of what happened on those moments? You can actually clearly know and identify what certain players are doing in those moments more obviously.
Absolutely. So when we get the raw data, we also, within that data, you also have the score data. So you're able to look at hundreds and hundreds of matches and pull out the key relevant sort of data lines for that, and then you can quite easily plug in or show what the behavior is in that moment. And I just want to stress as well, the under pressure is one thing, but also very first point of a game is a really an interesting bit of data that we look at. So particularly for the return player, we like to know where on the very first point the opponent's going on the serve, and it just gets you like if you're able to win that point, it just mentally you feel in the game, but also it puts a lot of pressure on the server. So under pressure is one thing, but also the very first point in a game is something we look at as well.
Yeah, nice. Is this something that you've been on a journey yourself? Like, did you have an extensive tennis background, or through the data, it's really taught you a lot about tennis itself? Like, kind of where was that crossover for you?
Yeah, so I played in Melbourne growing up, and then whilst I was at uni, I was playing AMT level. So I wasn't a very high level player. I would say I won a lot of matches not because of my talent or ability. It was because even at that stage, I would like to talk to other players that had played that particular player I was going to verse in a tournament, or if I could get access to some video, I would do that prep work because I knew going into a lot of matches, the players were bigger than me, had better weapons. But if I came in with a little bit of preparation, it could go a long way. So I credit that side for me winning a lot of matches that I shouldn't have won. And so so I always believed in the analytics. My in terms of my academic sort of journey, I did undergrad in law and commerce, and on the commerce side, I did statistics. Then I went and did a data science qualification and a master's in sports analytics. And throughout that time, I worked with a lot of different in a lot of different sectors using data. So I worked in the mining sector using data, where I wasn't a subject matter expert, but I worked with the experts in that area, and I saw how data was relevant. I did the same in the health sector, working with doctors, nurses, and just seeing how they used it and what KPIs they valued. And so I went into Cricket Australia first, actually, before tennis, and was using data to help the organisation, but also for talent identification work as well. So I saw the value in doing that, and then I decided to bring it to tennis. Work with some coaches that I knew, and trialed it, and could see there was some value and some gaps in how tennis was doing it. So yeah, that's how it sort of all came about. But as I said at the start, I think the access to data and the computing power, it's all, and the mobile, the cameras on their phones are significantly better than they were a decade ago. All of that's allowing us to capture the information quicker, analyze it quicker, and present it quicker.
Yeah, it's so exciting where this is heading, and it's really cool to hear the worlds intersect for you, and how you were able to win matches just purely from that, because that does tell you that we need to get so much more savvy with our preparation and how we prepare for the different styles and different players that we play. And if we can get some insights through data, then we should be taking advantage of that, which I feel should be just as important in a way as the physical preparation that we get so obsessed by, right? So it's really cool to see this starting to come to play, and like you said, it's just been changing and growing a lot in the last years.
Yeah, and I saw it at cricket as well. So cricket, I would say, was a few years ahead, and just the way that the coaches were using the training data, so they were wearing catapults or sensors to manage their load a lot better than they were in terms of scouting. They'd be looking at particular opponents and plans around it, and they'd often do that Monday, Tuesday, and then they're playing again on the weekend. And obviously, tennis is a little bit different in that you win a match, you're potentially playing the very next day, so that the time is a little bit squeezed. So I think the access to the data will, in a timely fashion, wasn't there in tennis. But as I said, I think that's changing, and because of that, now players should be able to review their matches and prepare for the next round much quicker.
Yeah, 100%. So I think a really interesting question, which I think from your experience could provide a lot of insight to, is how, from the data that you've been seeing across the tours for this many years, how should that shape our practice court? So for aspiring juniors, aspiring players, what statistics jump out to you? Go, wow, like we need to be doing so much more of this on the practice court. Our practice court needs to look like this based on the data.
Yeah, absolutely, and I go back to when I was being coached as well. I think broadly on what you're saying, the practice court needs to mirror what's happening on match day, because it certainly when I was growing up, it didn't do that enough. And one really good example is we do a whole training sessions hitting lots of forehands, backhands, long rallies, and then right at the end, maybe 5 minutes, we might do some serves. That was growing up. That was my experience of that. And then in fairness to the coach, there's a squad and there's so many players and there's one or two of them. It was very difficult for them to do much else at that time. But the mirroring the match day, in terms of the volume of serves you're hitting on a match, how often you're changing. So rather than hitting all your serves in one go, how about you hit 5 minutes of serves, then you play some points, then you switch sides. All of that, I think, needs to mirror what actually happens on a match day. I hear too many, like the juniors we work with, complain about the wind. Or the wind was really bad on that side, and I go, well, you could practice that on a windy day, and you should be switching sides, and you should be working out, right, I've got the wind behind my back on this side, I don't have it on this side, I should play, with a bit more shape on this side. Those are things that need to be trained on a practice court. So intuitively on a match day, they can figure it out. And I think, that's what I mean about we need to mirror what's happening in terms of volume, and in terms of, conditions and things as well.
This episode is brought to you by Rackets and Strings, which is Adelaide's leading racket specialist. There are 2 locations, one in Mile End and one in Sutherland Park. But don't fear, if you're not in Adelaide, you can go online and get everything you need. All tennis accessories, all racket sport accessories as well. If you are in store, you can try before you buy. They have 2 hitting walls in both their locations. You can take a demo away, and you're getting expert advice from the best in the business. They are a family business that have been doing it for 40 years, and Matt has been doing it for 20 himself. So he is extremely knowledgeable and is very good at steering you in the right direction to actually get the right equipment that is going to be good for your personal needs. And that's what makes them better than the rest, in our opinion. So please head to Rackets on Strings online, or if you're in Adelaide, get in store and get the best deals in town. There's a lot of talk about just what you're talking about on the practice court, right? So we've trained, like you said, we haven't used the serve enough, but then also we're playing so much longer rallies in practice when that doesn't really reflect what the data is saying around how long rally length is. Even at a junior level, it's still lower than what you would think it would be. So, I mean, the data is saying that the 0 to 4 is where most points are finished. It's around 50 to 60%. Correct me if I'm wrong here. And then you got 30 from 5 to 9 and 10 from 9 plus. So we're obsessing over the long stuff, but if that's happening 1 in 10, why are we obsessing over that so much? So has there been any change in that? And do you think that just needs to be like the primary focus in training, just way more patterns around serve and first ball and like 5 to 9 range?
Yeah. Look, I definitely agree. I think that there's a lot more 0 to 4. The thing that you've got to consider, though, if you take the serve and return out, then I would say still the shot 3, 4, 5, 6. They're the shots that I think are critical and need to be worked on, and emphasized a bit more. And you need to consider the game style of the player you've got, and so, for instance, if you're more of a counter puncher, then you're probably working on a little bit longer than if you're a first strike player that's looking at doing the damage on the ball 3 and 4, and things like that. So I still think you need to prepare a little bit. So the rally tolerance is there when you do need to play those longer points, but definitely don't need to be 50% of the lesson shouldn't be. I remember we used to do the Spanish fighting drill, and that was just it was a long rally, really, and we spent a lot of time. It was fun. But I think it didn't. Sometimes going into matches, there were balls where I could have finished the point off, but I was, I guess, backing myself to win the longer rally, and over time that may not have been the best thing because you fatigue and all that. So Yeah, definitely think ball 3, 4, 5, 6. That should be on the ground stroke, big focus, and then you should look at the game style. If you're an all-court player, then you should maybe look at patterns that help you get to the net, or using the slice a bit more, things like that. So really should be tailored a lot more to the game style.
Okay, so looking at game style, but then you also would say that we need to do a better job at reviewing shot 3, 4, 5, 6 in the rally and see what sort of patterns organically show up and what maybe naturally works for each individual in that shot range.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, absolutely, and then just again linking back to the match court, and this is even at the top of the game, I see it. The really good players, they can adapt their game style. So a really good example, we were working with Tara Daniel, who I know was on your podcast a few years ago, and he played Alcaraz at Roland Garros, and I think Tara got the second set. So Carlos won the first, Tara won the 7-6, and Carlos, who was playing, I think, with a lot more shape, um, um, and actually was, on the serve, was returning close to the baseline. At the start of the third set, after he lost the second set, he took about a step and a half behind, and he was just smacking every return, like really like big, and his ball speed went up about 10 kilometers. And so tactically, he changed. He was changing directions more, and the next two sets went so fast, and that ability to change your game style and adapt is something that needs to be practiced. Needs to be done on the practice court. For me, particularly the players that have a lot of options, they should be practicing those options. So it's natural on a match day that they can adapt and change their patterns. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. That's unreal. Do you have any other kind of clear examples that you can talk about that where you've had a player where you've implemented some strategy based on certain data, where you and you've seen actual real results where you actually saw a change?
Yeah, I think the big one that comes to mind is we started working with Ons Jabeur in 2020 with Issam Jalali. And we did what we call a deep dive report, which is an initial report we do. We get a lot of data. So I think with them, it was about 30 or 40 matches of data. We ran it through our tracking. We bought line calling data from Hawkeye, and we prepare a report looking at everything: serve, the return, what's happening when the balls are in play, pressure situation, the physical stuff. So your changes of direction, your deceleration, acceleration out of changes, your movement patterns, and basically we come up with recommendations. And we had I would say an 18-month plan based on that, and we work very closely with the coach. So the coach has some ideas. My team, the data scientists, have ideas. We also have coaching consultants that work with us. So we all came up with an 18-month plan for Ons, and part of it was around physical development, ability to play longer matches and move a bit better. But the other part was using the variety she had. Like she is one of the rare players, I think, on the WTA that's very confident with the slice, loves her drop shots, can vary the ball speed. And that was something we felt she was not using enough. She was trying to go big cross court with the likes of Pliskova's and the bigger ball strikers, and it wasn't working. I mean, she was doing okay, but she wasn't playing to her strengths as much as playing against the opponent. So that was so we had a plan, and then we review that as well. So there were some things that that in the first year we weren't able to do because she needed it was all like a puzzle. She needed to do a few other things, get that ready before we can put the next puzzle piece on. So to the coach's credit, he's a very experienced coach, and he bought into the data, but he also adapted. And then after the first year, she went from around 80 to 30, and then we realized, okay, she's now like in a lot of main draw as opposed to needing to play qualifying. And then she's naturally very good on grass, so built the season around what we were going to do on the grass court season. And she had amazing success, and 3 years in a row she was top 10. She made those 3 slam finals. Unfortunately, We would have liked to have gone, one of them at least. But yeah, I think an amazing success story of where data and coaching and the player buying into it worked really well.
It's incredible. Yeah, thanks for sharing. With that journey, what were some of the things that you actually started to drill into in terms of specifics with using the variety, right? For someone like that that is extremely skillful, how did you actually break apart the data and go, well, I reckon you could use this, this, and this in these moments or these situations?
Yeah, so we looked at things like a really good one was the ball speed variation. So we were able to look at all potential opponents and look at uh, what ball speed troubled them. So and obviously with almost all the players, if you're hitting very very big, you're going to trouble them. But it's a very high risky shot. If you're going to try and accelerate your ball 10, 15 kilometers more than you normally do, it's a risky play. You're going to make errors. But we found a lot of players, particularly the bigger ones that don't move so well, they hated the ball speed changing. They like on the WTA tour that they like to have the ball speed relatively consistent um and also in within basically the hitting zone. So if you're able to put it below the hitting zone and you're able to bring them forward a little bit and make them sort of backtrack or go forward, it was showing clearly that yeah, it had an advantage. And Ons had I guess the weapons in her toolkit to be able to do that. She can keep the ball low, hit it very flat, or when she wants to, she can put a bit more topspin. So it was just really finding that balance. At times we had to pull her back because she can play too many drop shots. So that was something we would give for feedback. We found that the first 4 or 5 drop shots were very effective, but then the opponent had caught on and she'd continue to play 20 25 in a match, and she wouldn't have the same success she did. So we had to really to feed that back and say, Ons, yes, we know that drop shots are a shot you like and it's effective, but if you're always going to play it, players are going to figure it out. So yeah.
Yeah, it's super interesting. Like, I mean, how far do you go with this, right? Like, you can get so wrapped up in the data that, like, one thing that comes to mind is the saying, like, paralysis by analysis,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Like, where do you think the balance is with someone like with some of these professional athletes where they're so skilled and adaptable that you tell them to do one thing and then they literally just do it to exactly how you say, but it doesn't quite work because there's always adaptability piece and then conditions that come involved and all the different changes that happen in a tennis match. That where is the balance, and what would you say to this kind of like paralysis by analysis comment here?
Look, I actually agree with it. You've got to be very very careful in how much you communicate to the player. So a lot of this has to happen on the practice court. We can't, you can't practice one thing and then on a match day say, all right, you got to play this way. Um, and uh, and we communicate. I think where it works well, we communicate with the coach, and then the coach drip feeds or picks and chooses what they want to communicate to the player going into a match, and that's got to be very simple and clear. And it's also got to put in the ability for the player to adapt and change. I had one example early on in my career where the player didn't have a coach. We were working directly with them. Very highly intelligent player, but they overthink. And we actually had a plan, and the plan worked well, really well. They were up 4-1, so it started really well, and the opponent changed tactically, and the player couldn't adapt to that change because they were so focused on what we had planned. And that was a learning lesson for me. Going right. Um, we need to make sure like the player can still identify like what's the word, working memory. They can kind of see, all right, the opponent's now adapted. I have a game plan B, C. I still have these other options available to me to adapt to them. So yeah, so yes, we've got to be really careful with the analysis and how much we feed back to the player, and that's where that coach filtering layer needs to happen, and the coach also needs to be identify that this is something we communicate for the match. This is something we communicate for a preseason. Like that. That's that.
Yeah.
So those soft skills are still quite critical.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. Like deep dives in practice, and then just a very simple messaging for the match court, right? So that's something I wanted to talk about, just like how you've changed your tone throughout just this learning process for you, right? Because you're obviously very passionate about it, and you love the data. But for you, how can you speak more about that changing process where you've gone, well, nah, that actually doesn't work. I need to really kind of communicate this, or maybe this is interesting data, but it's actually maybe not the right time to talk about it, or not worth mentioning it right now. Because yeah, it's a lot about timing with these athletes and when to deliver a key message.
Exactly, and I think going to this question, I think that it's very individual. So the players that we work with and the coaching teams, they all have different experiences and growing up, and tennis means different things to them as well. So yeah, the way I communicate with the Ons Jabeur team and Isam, who was the coach for her, is very different to how I communicate with Anton, with Aryna, when I was working with Taro, where he didn't have a coach for a while, how I communicated with him, and we just had to be really mindful of that. I try and get to know the players as that on a personal level, so I can work out right. They're someone that's going to be over like thinking a lot about it, a night before a match, or they're someone that wants something visually as opposed to text, or some of the players and the coaches, they didn't want a report, they wanted a voice note. So just adapting and just the people skills. I think in everyday life we don't communicate with everyone the same way. We change our tone depending on who it is and the situation. So those soft skills, as I said, that's something that I've developed, and I still probably need to develop more. I'm not saying I'm there and it's perfect, but yeah, you just adapt. And as well, sorry, the one point is that the change in where they are. So the communication at the start of when I was with the Ons team or Aryna team, when they weren't necessarily at the very top of the game, to where they are now. It's different, just because of the where they are in their career and where they are on the ranking. Uh, Priorities change, and the focuses change as well.
Yeah, important skills, and I like the fact that you're just willing to work with whoever's in front of you and adapt your style and be open to working with the individual. I think that's so important. Can you speak about what you did with Taro, if that's not confidential?
Yeah,
Just around, because he's obviously more comes from the previous generation was a lot more about shot tolerance, working hard, bit more grinding mentality, not huge weapons. So. How did you help him when he's obviously then trying to transition and still compete in this new generation? They're hitting harder and stronger.
yeah. So we worked with him. I think period. I want to say 2021 to around maybe the start of 2024. So the very first time we actually worked with him was in his when he was doing a little bit of work with Sven Gronehelm. So we did a deep dive, and that's basically where we got all that data, and we tried to look at the patterns that worked for him, the patterns that he maybe overused, and just also a little bit of a reverse scout. So if someone was playing him, what would we recommend on beating him? So the team was then able to sort of use that and prepare. And one of the things was, I think, his mindset. Like he's a relatively, I think he's 6'2", maybe pushing 6'3". He's a lot taller. He plays more like a traditional baseliner. He actually had the tools to actually hit his serve a lot bigger, and that was one of the things that we identified, where he can maybe take a bigger cut on that first serve and potentially get some free points. And I think from what I saw, he definitely managed to do that. I remember the run at the third round at the Australian Open, where I think he had a win on Andy Murray as well. He went through qualifying one of the years, and yeah, he was definitely hitting his serve bigger. There was one match where we were joking that he was almost like he had 15 aces. It was just a completely different version of him, and I love working with Taro because he's a sponge. He's really respectful. He's willing to challenge the data when needed as well. So that had that sort of two-way input. But he was one I had to be very, very careful with in terms of, or my team had to be very careful that we just gave him enough and not to overthink. So yeah, I loved working with him.
Is a legend. He's such a good bloke. Yeah, mad respect for him. With the game change, so a lot of the players are talking about just the balls being slower, courts being slower, right? So does the data reflect this, and what recommendations would you be saying for people like moving into the next phase of tennis, and where do you think it's moving into?
Yeah, I mean that was certainly something I looked at. Definitely, the rally lengths are a lot shorter than they were, or the surfaces are really converging a bit more. Like there's not as big a difference. And you can see it. I remember it should be on. I don't know if it's YouTube or on social media somewhere. I did a little bit of a look at a heat map in terms of the 90s matches on the grass court versus the matches after 2010, and you can see very clearly, and you see the the service box is like the wear and tear is very much on the front of the court, whereas now it's on the baseline. So, but what I would say is the really like to still be the more options you have on a tennis court to win a point. I think those players are still, for me, at the top of the game. So while serve and volley and coming forward might not be the default way to win a point now, the players that still have that in their toolkit, for me, they're the players that have the ability to have a lot of success. And a good example and a sad example is Grigor Dimitrov. Obviously, what happened at Wimbledon, very unfortunate. But he had something in his toolkit that was able to trouble Yannick Sinner. And that was that ability to vary the ball, to come forward, which troubled someone like Yannick, who was, other than Carlos, over a 2-year period, he's been unbeatable. And you saw for two sets, Grigor's variety really posed a lot of problems. So I still think the modern player needs to have the ability to do. The more you can train to do different like to the slice, the volley, the drop shot, changing pace, changing directions, as well as hitting your forehands and backhands. I think the more options you have, that's still going to hold you in good stead going forward.
100%. Everyone is getting so good, and I think everyone needs to be able to do so many different things to win points, especially if you're not a huge guy, if you're not like a really like 6-foot girl or 6'5" guy. Like you're going to have a lot of tools in the toolkit to really vary it up. Otherwise, it's just too brutal out there.
Yeah. Just on that, this is a bit of speculation, but I think,
yep.
I mean, in the data, I think there's some things that back it up, but I think we're going to have a ambidextrous, so someone that can hit 2 forehands, left and right side, and 2 backhands. I think we're going to have a Grand Slam champion like that in the next decade. And the reason for me in the data, that, as I said, the players that have the most options, both on attack and on defense, they seem to be at the very top of the game. And I think if you're able to, I know it's going to be a lot of training to be able to train for it, but if you're able to hit 2 forehands in attacking situations and 2 backhands in defense, like 2-handed backhands on both sides, I think that is the archetype of the player going forward, and someone's going to do it, and then everyone's going to copy them in the next 15. And for me, maybe tennis in 20 years, 25 years, you're going to have everyone doing it of both sides. I mean, it's speculation, but I think that's the next evolution of the game.
No, I love that. That's a great take, because that's something that I've been thinking about, because I've seen Alexander, I think Davidov, one of the best 12, 13-year-olds in the world, playing, excuse me, ambidextrous on both sides, and incredible. And it can be done, obviously requires so much work, but why not? Like, why not train to be elite on your left hand, your right hand, be able to do everything, and then just informed decision making on how to use it from an early age as well. And then that would be a teething process. That would be hard, very hard.
That's the key part. So a lot of talented players, where they have a lot of options, the challenge for them is, what do I use in what moment and what situation? And that's that'll be even more challenging when you've got that. But again, if that's done on the practice court, yeah, as I said, someone's going to do it, and then success leaves footprints, and everyone's going to copy. That's my
Yeah,
take.
yeah, no, mad respect for that take. I rate that a lot. So I think that's one of them, and I think the other one is someone that is like the height of the huge guys, 6'10", that moves like an NBA athlete. That like is a LeBron. Like if you get someone like that in the game, that's gonna absolutely transform tennis and break it over. I think they're the two clear examples on how something can transcend the game even
Yeah.
more in the future.
Yeah, and we got a small example. Well, I wouldn't say small. We did get a little bit of that from '90s to the mid 2000s. Like Gael Monfils for me is someone that came in with a much taller than played much. It moved much better than the similar height in the '90s, and you're
Yeah.
seeing like Medvedev. I think at his height, his game style was something that was very very foreign for someone of his size. So the bigger athletes are moving better, but as you said, the really like someone of a Karlovic, a Pelka, Isner height, if they start moving like that, and they still have the serve as a weapon, that will be a game changer, and maybe even something like that. The rules of tennis might change as well. Like they may take away, and that'll be another curveball that tennis. I think even though I'm a purist and I want 5-set tennis and I want two serves. We could see in the next 10, 15 years rule changes, which will suddenly, throw something else that will make a different type of player successful.
Yeah, yeah, nice. Is there someone that you find really, really interesting that's kind of caught your eye based on looking at their data or just from watching them that's made you want to research their data more?
Yeah, and we periodically do that. So definitely the younger players coming through, we try and keep an eye on. So I would say, in 2022, the player we looked at, and or the three players we looked at that we thought, okay, they're going to be certainly a problem for our WTA players because they're going to be very good. Were like Mira and Driva. We looked at both of the Providovas. And on the men's side, Fonseca was one that we were looking at very, very early on. So we try and keep an eye out. I think at the moment, and we're seeing a little bit of a Victoria Mboko. She we were looking at around 15, 16, thinking she's good. Then Thij Bourjard, who's I think working with the Moratoglu guys, we think will be very strong. So it's definitely something we try and have a look. We because a lot of the vision on the Le Petit and some of the junior events are available in the ITF. Where our AI solution, we can run the vision through, and we basically get their serve patterns, an estimate of their ball speed. So we can definitely have a good look and be more prepared than ordinarily if suddenly we've got to face them. They're a wild card to an event or they qualified. We're not going in blind against them, but also just in terms of for recruiting. So my company's looking to obviously work with more players. So we have a finite set of resources and staff. So we want to make sure who we're working with we feel has the capabilities to improve and the capabilities to take on board what we're doing. So we try and scout and talent ID who we want to work with. So yeah.
100%. I'm mindful of time, mate. So just going to fire off last question or two here. But just quickly, what are some of the benchmarks that we need to be, I guess, training for to, let's say, to be an elite, let's say 16-year-old or 14-year-old? From what you've been looking at, where does the ball speed need to be at? Or what are some important metrics that you're seeing? Like, yeah, that's kind of where you need to be.
Yeah, it's a tricky one to answer in a nutshell, but I would say you need to look at your game style and things like the grip. So someone with like a Western grip, I think your KPIs are a little bit different. So you might be a bit further behind the baseline, and that's okay as long as you're able to get that big strike with a heavier ball. If you've got a more, I know there's not many around, but more Eastern grip forehand, you probably want to be a bit more closer to the baseline, and your KPIs will be around your court positioning being closer, using the ball speed of opponents, things like that. And also, one of the things that we like to look at it, like with a player going, how tall are their parents? To give us a bit of a guide in terms of how tall they're going to grow, because some of the taller athletes we've found in our data take longer to develop, and also are prone to more stress fracture injuries as they're growing. So we really want to be careful of the load that they've got and the matches and the tournaments they're playing, just because we want to preserve that, and also mindful that they're not going to maybe have the physical capabilities that they will have at the age of 18, 19, 20, 21 at 14. So but we try and set KPIs around. A good one is the really elite players at Le Petit. They, on the serve, they seem to have targets. So, they've got the slice serve, which is shorter on the juice court, and pulling away. They've got, the deeper serves closer to the lines. The T serve is closer to the line. The kick serves are positioned really well. And you see that with the good players at Le Petit, the 14, 15, 16-year-olds. And then the ones that are not so good, you see like they don't really have a strategy and pattern. You can see their balls sort of landing everywhere. So, so there's KPIs like that. And then, the movement stuff, particularly if you're a player that's going to be a counter puncher, the changes of directions, your velocity in and out of a change, that's going to be critical because your game style is going to revolve a lot around your movement. So we try and look at that.
Super interesting stuff. So for someone that wants to work with you guys, what are the different offerings and how does it work?
Yeah, so we have packages as well. So for there might be there's like I would say like a silver standard package where you get access to your videos, some scouting reports, access to our mobile, and that would be like an annual price that you pay, and you get that. And then there's that's probably more tailored towards ITF level players. And then we've got players that are probably in around 100 or in Grand Slam qualifying sort of range. There's a sort of a more detailed version of that report, and then for our more advanced, so like the arenas of the world, we've got all bells and whistles kind of report where you've got the scouting, you've got the deep dives at the end of the year, you've got access to a mobile app where the coaches have sort of access to their data after every match and live data if they want, and they almost ad hoc two-way, like if the coach says, "Oh, can you do an analysis on the slice?" And then my team provides that analysis relatively quickly back to them. We also have, and if you Google this or on YouTube, you look it up, you can see we have a 3D AI visualizer where you can look at the biomechanics of serve pattern, or you can look at shot height, net clearance, really detailed analytical tool that they have access to. So that's like our bells and whistles report for the top of the game. So we try and cater to all ranking and all age groups as well. So I think the best way is to get in contact with us. We can sit down and have a conversation about what sort of things that you need and what your budget is, and then we can come up with something that works for everyone.
Nice, I love it. Just to wrap up here, what advice would you give like players and parents going on this journey to try to get as far as they can around data and analysis of data?
Yeah, I think don't be too overwhelmed by it, and start small. If you've never used it before, just start very small. Just put a camera up on your match, or if it's streamed, and then just use that review ability that you have when you have a match, just to look at maybe 2 or 3 things that you did well and 2 or 3 things you can improve, and start small there, and then if you're starting to go a little bit further or a bit more serious, then you can look at doing some scouting reports on opponents, or maybe going into a December period or a preseason or a block of time where you can train. You can do a bit of a report, and then but be consistent with it, and have independent. Be willing to get some independent advice as well. Sometimes you can get very close to the data, and not have that sort of objective view of it. A really good example to leave on, like a ball might land short in the court, and you might think, "Oh, I'm hitting too short," but it could be a good thing because you're landing a short because you've got a lot of top spin, so the ball jumps up a lot more on the opponent. So have someone that's obviously a high level coach or understands the game really well to help you understand the data as well, and not just put something in there and go, oh, this is bad, this is good. Like, get someone that really understands it to help you understand it. I think that's my bit of advice.
Advice. So where can people find you guys, or how can they get in touch if this has sparked some interest, with anyone listening today?
Yeah, so the company name's Data Driven Sports Analytics. I'm happy to share some links as well, but it's www.ddsportsanalytics.com, and that should come up. You can also find some examples of our work on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube as well. So yeah, just definitely have a look. Feel free to reach out as well. I'm happy to help people get started in their journey, even if we don't necessarily work with them directly to start with. As I said, I think it's now part and parcel of what you need to do, like eat well before a match, prepare for a match, have a coach, physio. I think now the data analytics is a key part of tennis athletes' journey, whether you're a junior, whether you're a high level social player, even or you're a pro in the top 10 in the world. I think it's now a key part of everyone's tennis journey.
100%. Yeah, I really agree. And thanks again. Really appreciate you making time. I know you're a very busy man, so yeah, appreciate it.
No, thanks again for having me, and look forward to maybe doing this again at some point in the
Yeah,
future.
yeah, absolutely. Sounds great.
Yeah,
See you later.
perfect. Thanks.
1 second. Stop.